Hello everyone, welcome to today's video on Sterling Integrator business process basics that we are covering since last few lessons. Those who are new to my channel, I would request you to please hit the like button, share and subscribe, and also hit the bell icon for getting notifications whenever I am posting something new in this channel. That way you get notified and then go through those lessons and ask questions through the comment section. As I mentioned, I was also planning that instead of uh, responding to each and every comments that you are posting, which I really appreciate, maybe I can have a session where I will go through all the comments and the questions that are posted in all the videos, consolidate them, and then try to answer most of them. That way, you all are having that recording for your future reference. With that, let's get started with today's video. So let me share my screen real quick. So we're going to take a little pivot and talk about this important topic when it comes to uh, business process developer, right? I think I have mentioned this multiple times that anyone who is getting started in business process development, they typically start or feel comfortable using the graphical process modeler or the GPM, which have showed like how you can access that through the Sterling Integrator dashboard. You log into that, and in the manager section under business process, you have an option of run graphical process modeler. It basically downloads uh, a file in your download directory, which is basically an Eclipse based platform. It's a GUI or graphical user interface, which has all these icons or stencils for all the services and adapters that are available within the Sterling integrator. And the good thing is, you don't have to worry about the code at the back end, which is similar to almost an XML language, but in Sterling integrator world, we call it as a business process modeling language, or in short, BPML. Now, for a developer who is just getting started, it's easy because they just drag and drop and then configure them, okay, by providing some inputs to different parameters in the configuration section down below, right, for each and every service in a address, and then they connect together and use their graphical process modeler to check in their business process. Or there are other ways, like I have showed how to deploy the code in the Sterling integrator server. Now, slow and steadily, okay, when you are getting comfortable using GPM or graphical process modeler, eventually the end state, right, as a senior developer is to get familiar with the BPML code itself, which is very self-explanatory. As I mentioned, it's XML kind of language where it's have like tags which are self-explanatory, okay, and the values within that, right? And in today's video, what we're going to do is like how you can make the move from GPM and start using BPML language, and also start coding, right, using BPML language. There is a lot of flexibility in respect to visualizing the code itself, right? Like folks who are coming from Java background, .NET, Python, right? For them, it's very easy to like look into the code and then directly edit the code and then check in that, rather than like using GPM time. It's basically time consuming as well, right? So I have seen like most of the senior developers, like they get comfortable with BPML and they never use GPM for their business process development. So that is what I'm going to cover. So if you see and if like I'm not able to cover, like I want to keep this video like as much as small possible for you to kind of understand the concept. So maybe if needed, we might split this entire video into multiple videos, right? That way you learn something new and then like continue in the next video to expand on that, right? With that, let's move on. So as I mentioned, right, these are the same thing. Okay, over time, if you see a developer realizes that they need to write code faster, right, and then start using something which is like they have already are familiar with, because like they probably have come from some kind of programming language background, like where they have like edited code using some IDEs, right, like Visual Studio IDEs, or JetBrains, those kind of ideas. So they think, okay, rather than using a GPM tool, sometimes they have challenges even to access GPM because of different reasons that I'm not trying to convey here. But they find comfortable using maybe a text editor or an IDE to just look into the code, right, and then start editing them, right? For that, you need to understand how each and every service or adapters and the configuration within that kind of relates back to the BPML language, right? As long as you are able to kind of create that mental model by visualizing that when I'm dragging and dropping a stencil or an icon of a service and adapters, what's happening behind the scenes? What are the different elements that comes together and how it is being mapped to the BPML code? If you're able to create that mental model, you should be able to quickly move to start using BPML in a text editor or an ID, right? That's kind of the, and then now if you see here, as I mentioned, is business process modeling language is using XML, as I mentioned, right? And now if you see over here, right here, I have given a quick sample code, right, where there's a start and end. There is a sequence start and sequence end. I have rewritten it like the sequence start as main. That's fine, you can keep it as sequence start. But then within that, there are a couple of services which are related to get date time. Now if you look this in the GPM, how it relates back to the business process modeling language or the BPML file, right? Now if you see over here, the name itself, right, over here is called SIA underscore date underscore conversion underscore. If this is the name that you are giving to your, and when you're saving the code in GPM and giving this name as your BPML code, then the process name, right, gets that name, right? So the first root element is the process name, and that gets that name, right? That's how it's being mapped. Now within that, as I mentioned, okay, there is a sequence start and a sequence end. Now sequence name can be a sequence start if you don't rename it. By default it is sequence start, but here as I have renamed it, it has turned to main, just to give you a kind of an understanding what happens, right, when you're doing anything on the GPM, right? So the sequence name is main, and then within that sequence start and sequence end, you have a different like service and adapters that you've pulled, right? And each and every service or adapters that you drag and drop and attach together, like connect them together, every service or adapters is basically uh, gets a block of code that is within an operation tag, right? So if you see, there are like couple of services and adapters over here, like couple of services like get that time. So there are like couple of operations, right? Operation start and then operation end tag, right? And everything is within that for first service, right? Get that time. Now the operation name itself gets the name of the service, right? And then within that, this basically, like, this is a rename, right? Like the actual service name is the participant name, right? If you see participant name timestamp util service, this is actually what you see on the left hand side when you open the GPM. On the left hand side, which you drag and drop, is basically timestamp util service. Now how you rename that, if you are renaming that, the operation name gets that name. But if you want to keep it same, that's totally fine, right? Like if you do not rename it, the timestamp util service, this operation name also gets timestamp util service, right? So this is what when you edit it, this gets updated, right? That's how the relation is, right, between the code and the icons, right? And then uh, here's one thing, okay, which you need to understand from a BPML standpoint. A service or an adapter gets an input, right, from its previous step, and then gives you an output, right, which goes as an input to the next step, right? That's the relation between getting an input into a service and then outputting an output from that service, right? But when it comes to the BPML language, this output message, right, if you see over here, right, it basically, the output message is basically the input message, right? Okay, that means you are telling this timestamp utility service that you're assigning, you are actually inputting that value, right? So it's from your end, okay, it's an output that goes into your service, right? That's why that information that you are like, if you're like initializing something, you are giving some input from process data, right, from the workflow, right? Okay, those all goes as an output. So output from our end, but input from the service side of it, right? Think in that way. So the output message, okay, is where, if you see, there are like couple of assign statements. What I'm doing is I'm saying assign to action current time, assign to format, what is the format that you actually, so this is what you're expecting, right? Okay, that if you're going to give me a current times date timestamp, but in which format I want it in this format, right? So you're giving that input or like instructions to the timestamp util service, right? So that goes within this output message block, right? And then what this gives as an output is basically what you get as an input, like, so it think as this input as a input to the next service, right? So you have to understand that relation. It's little confusing, but I'm just trying to help you like understand this concept, right? So output message is where is what it is getting as an input to perform its actions, and then what it is outputting is basically an input to the next, right? So think it from a process data standpoint, okay, from process data or your like what you have configured manually, right? So the output, okay, that comes out of this execution, okay, goes as an input. So what I want, that okay, you give me the date timestamp in this format, and where you want to give it, okay, is what I'm telling, okay, assign it to week. That means I'm actually asking, okay, in the process data, create a week tag within the XML, like the process data structure, under time slash text. So under week, and then within that there's a time tag, okay, sub element, okay, is where is going to assign that information, right? That's how it's being um, coded, right? Similar over here, the next one, right? So that's another operation, right? Now operation, as it starts, okay, it has an ending. The name is get date time. So I've written rewritten that timestamp util service. Now over here, I've given a little different example. What I've done is, if you see over here, output message is what I'm giving as an input to this timestamp util service, as I mentioned, and I'm saying action is format. Okay, so I want this timestamp util service to reformat my date timestamp from the previous output, right? So what I'm giving is, okay, do a format, right? So the previous one gave current time. The next one, okay, I'm saying, okay, do a formatting on the existing timestamp that I got from the previous one, right? And then is I'm telling, okay, how, what is the base time that you will consider to do that formatting? Okay, take that information from the process data slash week is where actually we saved the previous output, right? So that's why I'm giving like from process data slash week, right? And then how do you want to format, like which format you would convert it into? So the previous one, if you see over here, was the output was in format like YYYYW, but I want it to be reformatted into YYYYMMDD format, right? So I'm using timestamp utility service here to reformat the previous timestamp, right? And then what I'm doing is in the input message, right, is where I'm saying, okay, now that reformatted timestamp, how you want to, where you want to store? I want to store it in week start date tag. Sorry, uh, I want to store it in this week start date tag, right? In the process data, right? Uh, so this goes back into the process data and gets updated, right? So this is, and then like if you see, the two operations are completed, Now we have created a sequence start, right? So it has to end with a corresponding sequence end, and then the overall business process completes over here. There are no other services adapters, so we close it with a closing braces and process, right? So that's kind of the relationship or mapping between uh, business process writing in a GPM versus, okay, how you want to compare it into business process modeling language, right? Now in the next section, okay, we are going to dive deep, okay, into what are the benefits of using BPML, right? And then how you want to make a move to BPML. And I'm going to show you, if you see over here, I'm going to touch base on like taking a business process, and then what are the configurations that you do in the GPM, right? And then how it relates to the process data. It's sorry, in the BPML code itself, right? And then we were gonna talk more about process node, sequence node, operations node, right? Assign node. And then we're going to talk about like different icons to the XML structure, as I just mentioned, right? Over here, this same example. And then we are going to go into the service and adapter configuration, which is very important. Not only writing a business process in GPM or BPML, but also you need to understand how you can configure the service and adapters, the default services and adapters, right, to be used in your business process. Like sometimes we have to create like new service and configurations, okay, for our purpose, and then use it in our business process. We are going to cover those in our following sessions, right? We're going to talk about message to, message from, right? So bear with me, okay? I hope this was useful for you to understand, okay, how you can start making that move, right? And I'll talk to you next video to expand on top of that, right? And with that, okay, uh, I also again request those people, okay, who are new to my channel, please hit the like button, share with your friends, right, who are probably working in similar kind of projects like EDI projects, and also subscribe and hit the bell icon for getting notified for these small nuggets of EDI and Sterling Integrator business process and map development videos, right, that I'm trying to make for the community, right, so that you get benefited from all these insights that I have acquired over the last 16 years of working in the integration space. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.